All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome back here to the Brandon's World Podcast. And again, to end today's podcast, as a reminder, we will be here every Monday, every Thursday from now on. We weren't here Monday because of Labor Day, but we're going to have a podcast on Monday right after the NFL Week 1 games. We're going to break down the NFL action. We're going to have a podcast here on Thursday. We talk about the Thursday night game. I make my best bets for Week 1, and I make my picks for the next week. But here we go. These are Brandon's best bets for the Week 1 2021 NFL season, and I am going to start with the Washington football team. I already mentioned this a little bit earlier. Now, I've seen lines that are Chargers plus 1.5, Chargers, minus 1.5, Chargers minus 1, Washington minus a half. What I have here right now is Washington minus a half. And no matter what the line is, I would take Washington. I already explained it. The Chargers have a new head coach in Brandon Staley. And even though I love Justin Herbert, this is his first game with fans in 2 years. I think it's going to take time for the Chargers to adjust. They have new offensive linemen, in the left tackle out of Northwestern and Slater. They have a new all-pro center in Corey Linsley. But they're going to take time for those guys to develop. And that Washington pass rush is going to get after Herbert. I think Ryan Fitzpatrick, for the first couple of weeks, is going to be really good for Washington, even though I think he's a downgrade overall to Alex Smith. I think Terry McLaurin has a good game, and I'll pick Washington here to win the game at home. I'll take Seattle minus 2.5 against the Indianapolis Colts. Again, I love the Colts next year. I did love them this year until they got injuries at receiver. They got injuries at the offensive line. They got their quarterback not willing to be vaccinated. They got vaccination issues all across the board. They have a rough schedule out of the gate with the Seahawks, the Rams, the Dolphins, the Titans, the Ravens, the Niners. It is a gauntlet the first 7 weeks for the Indianapolis Colts, to the point where I could see them at 1-6 or 2-5 at best during those 7 games. I think it's going to be a really tough adjustment for the Colts and Carson Wentz and crew. We know how good Russell Wilson is on the East Coast. Give me Seattle minus 2.5. My only dog of the week, I'm going to take Arizona plus 3 against Tennessee. Last year, I took Arizona plus 7.5 against San Francisco. They ended up winning the game outright, and that was when San Francisco was still San Francisco. Listen, Tennessee may have Julio Jones, but I'm still wondering how they're going to use him. Derrick Henry's still going to be the feature back. Will Julio Jones and A.J. Brown be mad they're getting less touches? That's a good question. Arizona added J.J. Watt up front. They added A.J. Green in the receiving room. They added Rodney Hudson at center. They are loaded. They are, to me, one of the best teams in the NFC. They may be third or fourth in their division, but they're still one of the best teams in the NFC because the division is loaded. Tennessee doesn't have a great pass rush. I think Kyler Murray has a great game throwing and running for the air. Arizona goes down to Tennessee and wins Week 1. Jacksonville minus 2.5 against the Texans. Now, I'm going to take Jacksonville here again. I don't even think Houston wins the game. The typical NFL game is decided by 3 points. So I'm going to take Jacksonville to at least, get over that 2.5, at least win by 3. I think it's going to be more than that. I think Urban Meyer's going to show some trickery that David Culley is not ready for. And I think Trevor Lawrence has a good Week 1. I can't even name one Houston defender. So give me Jacksonville. And finally, New England minus 2.5. I think Mac Jones is going to look comfortable. I think the New England defense, with all the guys that got back that opted out of COVID, is going to make Tua uncomfortable. I think New England rolls over Miami in New England. The Mac Jones era gets off to a good start. So to recap, we have Washington minus a half, Seattle minus 2.5, Arizona plus 3, Jacksonville minus 2.5, and New England minus 2.5. What I typically look for these spreads on the board is if the spread is less than 3, I'm usually going to bet it. Why? Because of the way scoring works in football. You can only score 2, 3, 6, or 7 points at a time. And a typical NFL game, usually, it's decided by 3 points. It's usually one possession, but the team usually wins by more than 3. So if the spread's less than 3, it's more than likely your team's going to win by a field goal or more. So whichever team I think is going to win, I will bet that. I took that case, and obviously Washington, Seattle, Jacksonville, and New England. Arizona is plus 3, which means even if Arizona somehow loses by 2 or 1, I would still win. But again, I think Arizona wins outright. Some other bets that I don't have on here that I would absolutely probably take if I wasn't doing 5 would be Green Bay -4 against the Saints, and the Giants +3 at home against Denver. I think also a sneaky bet could be possibly Atlanta -3.5 against Philadelphia, and I know it's a little bit of a large number here, but Buffalo -6.5 against Pittsburgh. I just don't think Pittsburgh's going to be able to keep up with Buffalo. I think that could be a blowout week 1. I know Ben Roethlisberger's motivated. I know Pittsburgh says when Najee Hines are going to run the ball more. I'll believe it when I see it.